What if I told you that a quiet revolution is happening right now in cancer treatment? One so dramatic that it could topple medical giants, rewrite global business strategies, and determine the fate of millions battling blood cancers? Imagine standing at the threshold of a new era where decades-old therapies are challenged, global pharmaceutical companies race for dominance, and patients cling to hope as never before. But here's the twist. The technologies behind these changes are so new, so advanced, that they're forcing us to rethink not just medicine, but the economics of survival itself. This story is about the battle for the future of blood cancer therapy, the hidden war between pharma titans, the breakneck pace of scientific discovery, and the profound question, how do we deliver the right, life-saving medicine to the right patient at exactly the right time and at a price the world can bear? The world of hematology, cancers of the blood, like multiple myeloma and diffuse large B-cell lymphoma, or DLBCL, has long been a graveyard of hope for patients whose disease returns again and again. For decades, survival rates crept forward in slow, agonizing increments. The standard treatments like R-CHOP for DLBCL and the cocktail of proteasome inhibitors, immunomodulatory drugs, and monoclonal antibodies for multiple myeloma were the best we had. But for too many, they simply weren't enough. But now, in packed lecture halls and behind closed doors at the American Society of Clinical Oncology's annual meeting, a new battle plan is emerging. This year, the buzz is electric. Data from Regeneron's linvoseltamab and Merck's zilovertamab vedotin are sending shockwaves through the oncology community. Could these drugs change everything? To truly grasp what's at stake, let's hit pause for a moment and understand how we got here. Blood cancers like multiple myeloma and DLBCL are not just medical puzzles, they are multi-billion-dollar battlegrounds. In the past, the vast majority of myeloma patients received similar treatments regardless of their specific cancer profile. For DLBCL, R-CHOP, an intense chemotherapy blend, has reigned supreme since the 1970s. It's so effective that up to 60% of patients may be cured with it. But for the rest, those who relapse or never respond, the options quickly ran out. Enter the era of targeted therapies and immunotherapy. CAR T-cell therapy broke onto the scene like a tidal wave. Scientists engineer a patient's own immune cells to recognize and destroy cancer. Success stories abounded, but so did new risks, severe toxicities, and astronomical costs. For every blockbuster CAR T success, there was a patient who suffered horrifying side effects or simply couldn't access the therapy because of its six-figure price tag. The urgency to innovate hasn't gone unnoticed by the world's largest pharmaceutical companies. Giants like Regeneron, Johnson & Johnson, Merck, and Amgen are now in an arms race, pouring billions into developing the next big thing. The math is simple. Whoever cracks the code for relapsed or refractory cases, those who don't respond to current treatments, secures not just scientific acclaim, but a market worth tens of billions globally. It's these relapsed and refractory patients, the ones who run out of options, who are at the heart of this year's blockbuster trials. Take Regeneron's linvoseltamab. In the latest Linker MM2 trial, this engineered bispecific antibody is combined with the established drug bortezomib to hunt down multiple myeloma cells with lethal precision. The goal? Outmaneuver the cancer's ability to hide and rebound. Preliminary results look promising, showing solid activity even among patients whose disease has returned multiple times. Meanwhile, Merck's zilovertamab vedotin is going head-to-head against the decades-old king of DLBCL therapy, the R-CHOP regimen, in the massive Waveline Zero-Town trial. Here's why this matters. If zilovertamab vedotin combined with RCHP, a slightly tweaked version of R-CHOP, proves more effective, it could dethrone a therapy that has been unimpeachable for 50 years. Muhit Ozkan of Ankara University puts it bluntly, zilovertamab vedotin plus RCHP shows efficacy as frontline DLBCL treatment. Why are these therapies such a big deal? Unlike conventional chemotherapies, they can be far more selective. Take bispecific antibodies, which attach to cancer cells and immune cells simultaneously, drawing them together like magnets for a targeted attack. This new breed of therapy is already crowding the multiple myeloma market, causing analysts to warn that differentiation is everything. Bispecific antibodies offer a new approach, but the multiple myeloma space is getting crowded, one leading analyst observed. On the CAR T front, subtleties in design can mean the difference between life and death. Consider the pilot trial, which has made the case for using lysocabtagene maraleucel, or liso-cel, in patients with large B-cell lymphoma who are too frail for stem cell transplants. These are patients for whom traditional options are literally off the table. But it's not all smooth sailing. Nathan M. Denlinger of Ohio State University points out, grade 3 ICANS with axi-cell was 21% in Zuma 7, which is severe, referring to life-threatening neurotoxicity associated with a competing CAR-T product. His message, progress brings danger, and toxicities are as much a part of the conversation as efficacy. In fact, understanding these risks is evolving into a science of its own. Researchers increasingly advocate for choosing CAR-T products based on individual risk profiles, not just brute force effectiveness. It's not just about beating cancer, but doing so without breaking the patient. Against this backdrop, regulators are sitting up and taking notice. The FDA has put linvoseltamab on a priority review track, setting an aggressive action date for July 10, 2025. For patients and families, this means hope could arrive sooner than expected. But there's a catch. With all these innovations, the CAR-Ts, the bispecifics, the antibody-drug conjugates, the economics get tricky. These treatments can cost hundreds of thousands of dollars per patient. Health systems, even in wealthy nations, are straining to keep up. The field is now forced to answer, how can we deliver cutting-edge care without bankrupting either patients or the system? Access is becoming as much of a challenge as the science itself. For example, despite zilovertamab vedotin targeting a marker called ROR1, new data suggests that patients don't need to be tested for ROR1 expression before receiving the drug. This could make treatment faster and more widely available, but only if pricing and logistics can keep up. The stakes? Nothing less than the future of cancer care. If these trials succeed, they could rapidly become new standards, forcing governments and insurers worldwide to rethink budgets and policies. Failure, on the other hand, could set back research by years, leaving patients in limbo. Emotions run high. In hospital wards and online support groups, patients and families anxiously watch ASCO updates, daring to hope for a breakthrough, but terrified of disappointment. The energy is palpable, the urgency exhausting. For some, the next few months will decide everything. But let's step back and ask, how did we get here? How did a handful of companies, drugs, and clinical trials come to dictate the fate of entire populations battling these blood cancers? It began with a brutal realization. Traditional approaches were running out of steam. Cancer, especially in its most aggressive, stubborn forms, was outsmarting every new drug thrown at it. Relapses were frequent, and each one narrowed future options. The first revolution came with monoclonal antibodies, precision-guided missiles that could target cancer cells while sparing most healthy tissue. The next was immunotherapy, unleashing the body's own defenses. But the Holy Grail remained out of reach, a combination of therapies powerful enough to eliminate even the stealthiest cancer cells, gentle enough to be given to the frailest patients, and affordable enough to roll out worldwide. This is where the current crop of therapies comes in. Linvoseltamab, by engaging both cancer cells and T cells, aims to create a direct pipeline for immune destruction. Early trial data show it can work even in heavily pre-treated patients, but it raises questions. How durable are the remissions? What side effects will emerge over time? And most importantly, will it still work when combined with other therapies in the real world, outside the tightly controlled clinical trial setting? Similarly, zilovertamab vedotin's rise challenges the R-CHOP monopoly in DLBCL. If the Waveline 010 trial proves successful, it could trigger a massive shift across hospitals worldwide. But the complexity of antibody-drug conjugates means new risks. Will toxicity hold back widespread adoption? Will the costs be justified by the gains in survival and quality of life? Meanwhile, CAR-T therapies like liso-cel and axi-cell are being dissected for their toxicity profiles. Patients too frail for stem cell transplants represent a tempting but risky frontier. The hope is to bring the benefits of CAR-T to a larger, older, and sicker population, but this also means more unpredictable side effects. As one researcher warns, consider liso-cel over axi-cell for transplant-ineligible LBCL due to lower ICANS rates. And all of this is happening as the genetic and molecular understanding of blood cancers explodes. In the near future, personalized medicine, genomic profiling to match the patient to the ideal therapy, could make sweeping one-size-fits-all approaches obsolete. Next-generation immunotherapies, smarter CAR-T designs, more potent bispecific antibodies, and rational drug combinations are all on the horizon. It's a high-stakes, high-emotion environment. Patients and doctors are caught between the promise of a new era and the painful realities of side effects, access, and cost. The pharmaceutical industry is gambling billions, regulators are accelerating reviews, and everyone is waiting to see if the coming months will bring triumph or heartbreak. But the main problem is still unsolved. How do we make sure these breakthroughs reach the people who need them most, quickly, safely, and affordably? Will the new generation of drugs truly upend the standards of care, or will they become just another chapter in the long, expensive war against cancer? And as the world watches, who will pay the price for innovation? The companies, the patients, or all of us? The answers may hinge on the results of clinical trials unfolding right now and the business decisions being made in secret boardrooms. The dawn of a new era in blood cancer treatment is at hand, but the next moves will decide if this revolution delivers on its boldest promises, or if, once again, hope must wait. As we rejoin the story, the world of blood cancer therapy stands at a crossroads. The optimism fueled by Regeneron's linvoseltamab and Merck's zilovertamab vedotin is unmistakable. Yet beneath the surface, a storm of questions brews. Will these discoveries ever fulfill their enormous promise, or are we simply moving the goalposts? New hope, but the same old barriers? Let's look ahead. Imagine a landscape where genomic profiling is routine. A world where your blood test doesn't just diagnose cancer, but pinpoints which therapy will work for you, sparing you the trial and error of today's regimens. This is the vision of personalized medicine, and for millions, it could mean the difference between life and death, between hope and resignation. But there's a catch. Bispecific antibodies offer a new approach, but the multiple myeloma space is getting crowded, warn market analysts. Each breakthrough brings a flood of new options. More innovation, yes, but also more complexity, more need for expertise, and frankly, more cost. Health systems must adapt, not just with new drugs, but with new ways to deliver and pay for them. The first big consequence? Faster approvals, but a race against the clock. The FDA's priority review for linvoseltamab shows the hunger for answers, yet the medical world remembers past lessons. Hype can race ahead of proof. CAR T therapies, the celebrities of recent years, dazzled with stories of cured patients, only for longer-term data to reveal sobering toxicity concerns. As Dr. Nathan M. Denlinger underscores, grade 3 ICANS with axi-cel was 21% in ZUMA-7, which is severe. The risk of neurotoxicity looms large for fragile patients. The promise of a cure must be balanced with the reality of side effects, sometimes life-threatening. So where does this leave the field? For one, in a state of continuous evolution. The Waveline 010 trial, testing zilovertamab vedotin for DLBCL in combination with RCHP, could rewrite the rulebook for newly diagnosed patients. Imagine a future where first-line treatment means sophisticated antibody-drug conjugates, not just old-school chemotherapy. Dr. Muhit Ozkan is bullish. Zilovertamab vedotin plus RCHP shows efficacy as frontline DLBCL treatment. Yet no one can ignore the economic elephant in the room. The second big issue is cost, a topic that's as emotional as it is financial. These new therapies are often priced well into 6 figures per treatment. For health systems, insurers, and especially patients, sticker shock is real. While regulatory agencies push for faster access, payers are asking, how much can we afford, and who will have to wait? For many, the answer is heartbreaking. Access remains a lottery, dictated not just by need but by geography, wealth, and policy. But there are rays of hope. Regulatory science is evolving. The FDA's expedited review of linvoseltamab, with a targeted action date in July, signals a recognition of urgent need. Meanwhile, researchers are learning from past missteps. For example, the understanding that ROR1 expression does not predict zilovertamab vedotin efficacy means doctors can skip expensive testing, speeding up access to therapy. Let's peer even further into the future. Imagine CAR T therapies engineered for fewer side effects, ready to be administered outside specialized centers. Bispecific antibodies that are effective with fewer infusions, or that can be mailed to rural clinics. Genomic sequencing as a standard diagnostic tool, with AI matching every patient to the optimal combination, not just for efficacy, but also for safety and cost-effectiveness. Yet not every future is rosy. The promise of personalized medicine carries new risks. The more we divide cancers into rare subtypes, the harder it becomes to run large clinical trials. We may soon face a world where the science is ahead of the delivery infrastructure, where innovation is fast, but health systems can't keep pace. This could mean growing disparities between patients in rich urban centers versus those in rural or lower-income areas. If we zoom out, the The revolution in blood cancer therapy is also a test bed for global medicine. Will the lessons here, rapid innovation, cost, real-world data, shape how we treat not just cancer, but all complex diseases? Already the pressure is spreading. What happens in multiple myeloma and DLBCL is being watched closely by those working in solid tumors, rare diseases, and chronic illnesses. The practical question for you, the viewer, is, what do these breakthroughs mean for your life? Maybe you or a loved one is fighting a blood cancer. Maybe you're a medical professional, or just someone who wants to understand how medicine is changing before our eyes. Here's what you can do. First, stay informed. The pace of research means that what's announced today could change clinical practice tomorrow. Follow key meetings like ASCO, and ask your doctor if you or your loved ones are eligible for emerging trials or therapies. Don't be afraid to seek second opinions or expert consultation, especially for difficult-to-treat cancers. Second, ask about genomic profiling. As the era of personalized medicine arrives, knowing the genetic makeup of your cancer can open doors to trials and treatments that might have seemed out of reach just a few years ago. Third, advocate for yourself and others. Many of the biggest changes in cancer therapy have come about because patients and families demanded more, from researchers, regulators, and payers. Join patient advocacy groups, participate in discussions, and use your voice. Access to cutting-edge treatment shouldn't depend on your zip code. Fourth, be realistic. Not every new drug is a miracle. Some will disappoint, others will work for a few, but not for all. The current excitement does not erase the need for careful conversations about benefit, risk, and personal goals of care. As a medical professional said, R-CHOP remains standard DLBCL treatment, but can be curative in up to 60%. Never forget that established therapies often still save lives. Innovation should add to, not replace, the essentials. And finally, remember the big picture. The breakthroughs in blood cancer are built on decades of relentless research, trial, and error. Every new approval stands on the shoulders of thousands of patients who volunteered for studies, sometimes knowing full well the risks. So, does this revolution deliver on its promises, or are we setting ourselves up for disappointment? The truth is nuanced. For some, the new wave of therapies like linvoseltamab, zilovertamab vedotin, or next-generation CAR-T will indeed mean longer lives, fewer relapses, and hope where once there was none. Regulatory systems are moving faster, and researchers are smarter about how to target, combine, and sequence therapies. There are fewer unnecessary tests, thanks to findings like ROR1's lack of predictive value, so treatment can start sooner. These are big wins. But the revolution is not equally distributed. Cost and access remain glaring challenges. In some regions, innovators will have to grapple with how to make six-figure treatments available without bankrupting families or health systems. Policymakers and payers will need to take bold, sometimes uncomfortable steps, rethinking reimbursement, negotiating better prices, investing in infrastructure. The real-world effectiveness of treatments will be tested not just in labs and clinics, but in living rooms and community hospitals. The future will belong to those who can bridge the gap between discovery and delivery, between promise and practice. And here's a secret fact you might not hear at the big press conferences. Sometimes, the biggest breakthroughs aren't about new molecules at all. Often, it's the work behind the scenes, streamlining trial design, sharing real-world data, or simply cutting down on bureaucracy that moves the needle for patients. The future of cancer care is as much about access and systems as it is about science. As the next ASCO meeting draws near, keep your eyes open, not just for the headline results, but for the deeper shifts in how we, as a society, think about value, access, and hope. The revolution is real, but it still needs all of us to demand its fruits. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the front lines of cancer innovation. Stay curious, advocate for yourself and others, and never stop asking the big questions. Because in the story of medicine, every voice matters, and tomorrow's breakthrough may arrive when we least expect it. Subscribe, leave a comment below with your thoughts.